Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to today's Harmony Insights lunch date. My name is Erich Kurschat. I'm the owner of Harmony Insights LLC, a company that allows me to work with organizations and consultants using the DISC personality assessment, much of which is done virtually online, and then not only from the assessment, but through the conversations, bringing your teams together to talk about how they connect effectively and meaningfully with each other and their respective audiences. You can find out more about that at harmonyinsights.com. I am also the founder of the HR Hot Seat Inclusive Mastermind community. We have over 2,600, as we say, real HR pros solving real HR problems in 10 different licensed chapters across the country. Everything that we do is entirely free, always has been, and these days it's entirely virtual. So you can find out more about the HR Hot Seat community at hrhotseat.com. What you have joined us for today is something that I refer affectionately to as a Harmony Insights lunch date. Many of you know I started these back in April to remain inspired, to do my best work. And I scheduled conversations with people that really do inspire me. And along the way, I thought, hey, if I could invite other people into these conversations, then perhaps it would be beneficial to them as well. And so they've just kind of taken off. And I'm thrilled to welcome to today's lunch date, Terry Bean. Terry, welcome.
Eric, thank you. I'm really excited to be here, man. I appreciate you having me.
Terry, it is really just a thrill to have you on. I first found out about you, we'll say, through Tina Marie Woolfield's HR Unite conference this summer. She did a virtual concert. It was supposed to be in person in Frankenmuth, Michigan, ended up being online and was a wild success virtually. You were a part of that. And I was so inspired, not only by your content, but just your style of presentation, that I thought, this is somebody that I want to spend more time talking to. You and I connected via phone, and then now we're here in our second conversation for a lunch date. So let me say right off the bat, I'm just so excited that we have this time to chat today, and that you're willing to come on and share your passion with our attendees.
I'm here, man. I'm happy to be here. I really dug your style, your vibe, and your energy. So when you asked, that's an easy yes for me, man. So thank you for being here, dude. I'm a big fan of cool. So, and Tina Marie, who I know is on here, she epitomizes it. She's surrounded by great people. So big shout out to Tina Marie.
She really is. We've been very collaborative. I really appreciate her and everything she's doing with her HR Unite community in Michigan and elsewhere these days. So if I go to LinkedIn, and I hope people can see this, I go to your page on LinkedIn and I start scrolling through here, I can see that you are doing more than any individual I would imagine is capable of doing. You're speaking all over the place. You've created, founded different networking groups at a time when combined in-person and virtual networking wasn't really a thing quite yet. You were at the beginnings of TEDx Detroit. I have to ask you right off the bat, number one, how is it possible for you to be doing as much as you are? And two, when I came to you and said, hey, Terry, what do you want to talk about today? And you said, I want to talk about the power of networking. What is it about professional networking that you have a distinct passion for?
It's the serving of others, right? And ultimately, I guess that energizes me enough to be able to parcel the things that I want to do into different areas, into different arenas, because ultimately, as long as you're giving back and helping other people move forward, I feel like there's this reciprocity that happens, right? So like I can breathe my life or breathe my energy into you, and the only thing that's going to happen is I'm going to get 2 times back, right? So I joke sometimes and I'm like, I just got a big motor, and it's because of that giving, right? I'm sure of it. I'm sure of it.
So I think people who are familiar with lunch dates know that they follow this sort of general topic flow where we talk about your passion, certainly for the topic. I want to make sure we touch on some challenges that our audience may be facing. And just to be clear, our audience is HR professionals, but they're leaders at all levels of the company, of their organizations. They are in transition, perhaps. They're individual contributors who are really just trying to figure their way through or find their way through professional networking. So we'll identify some challenges, but then we'll also talk about some tips that you have and any resources that you'd like to share with our attendees. And they know that I'll follow up via email with any of the resources that we do talk about, so they don't have to scramble to take mad notes on everything that we discuss, although I'm sure that they're going to be inspired to do so. Right off the bat, I've put together just a quick poll for people. And if people can see that, I ask a very simple question. How confident are you in your ability to build and nurture a diverse professional network? Very confident, somewhat confident, or I could use some serious help. I know I've been in that last category at some point along the way as well. As we talk about professional networking, Terry, in your experience, and I certainly want to dig into what you're doing in terms of the communities that you've built and founded, what are some of the primary challenges that you see people facing when it comes to expanding and building a diverse network of their peers?
It starts with the lack of knowledge on how to do it, right? We don't have a good training program or a facility to actually do that, right? There's no classroom, there's not a lot of lessons going on there. So I think that's the knowledge of doing it the proper way is off, right? A lot of people go into networking thinking, what can I get? What can I get? What can I get? Not realizing that if you start asking, what can I give? Networking becomes infinitely easier. And then the last piece that I think at the highest level that people miss is having a crisp and clear, concise, confident ask, right? What are you actually looking for? And this is in terms of job seeking, this is the biggest thing I hear. What do you want to do? I'm just looking for a job. BS. If you were just looking for a job, there's 87 of those in any market, any retail, any place you walk by is looking for help. Get really, really specific on what you want. The more specific you are, the more likely you are to find it, not just because of your network, but from a universal law perspective too. The law of specificity is really, really important.
I love that. And just so you know, I think your video may have frozen, but we can still hear you, which is the important thing. So
Oh, you know what the essay was? The question was still up, and so I probably didn't. I was like, oh, maybe this is still here. I don't know. So are you seeing me now?
yeah, we're good. We can
All
see
right.
you.
Which is better,
Um,
the survey question or this face? I go back and forth sometimes. It maybe
we'll go
visually
with
the
the face. I mean, admittedly, you could use some work on the beard, but we'll go with the face.
I think when we first talked, I was still in COVID beard too, and I remember being really impressed with yours. And mine was kicking, man. I had it going, but she didn't finally say to take it off, but she didn't not say to take it off.
I want everyone to notice that Terry is out and about in his car in public being social, and I am locked away in my home office. And I think that there's a distinct difference in terms of how we need to be grooming ourselves accordingly.
That could be. That could be.
You said
Yeah.
a couple of things there, Terry. The first thing that you said that really got my attention was getting versus giving. And I've seen that myself. I do a lot of speaking on the topic of networking, especially for introverts. And regardless of our personality style, I feel like there's this natural inclination to network because we need something. We need a job or we need an introduction. And so we approach the conversation with our needs first and foremost in mind, which then puts on the back burner the needs of the person that we're trying to connect with. Tell me more about what you've seen there and how you see that as a particularly disruptive challenge.
So a couple of things, right? If you're coming at it with what you need, somebody's guard's already up, right? When you come at it with what they need, they're going to open up and talk to you like your best buddies. It's amazing how much more quickly you can build that relationship with a mind of service as opposed to a mind of what's in it for me. One of the pieces that I highly recommend, and it's on LinkedIn and it's on my website, but if you just Google "after you networking Terry Bean," just those 5 words, "after you networking Terry Bean," and read that piece, I think it's really, really eye-opening for people to understand what their approach should be, right? In terms of again, assuming you want to optimize networking. If you just want to go out and network, you do whatever the hell you want. But if you want to be exceptional at it, right, right, stand out level, then read that. It'll help you quite a bit. And then the other side, people go out of their way. If you help them, they're like instantly on lockdown trying to figure out how to help you back. It's an amazing piece, right? So when I saw HR Unite was moving into Dallas because Tina Marie's been so fabulous, I'm like, wait a second, I have a cousin. She's in Dallas. She knows HR people. Let me tag her and get her involved and connect her with Jihan, who's also awesome in HR in Dallas. And let's see if we can make some magic happen, because like that's how that whole law of reciprocity works.
I've heard Zig Ziglar, among other people, say if you help enough other people get what they want, you will get what you want. And that sounds like exactly what you're talking about.
That's exactly right. And I just saw Michael Nadler, the more you give, the more you get. Couldn't, he nailed it.
So some people are going to be sitting here, and of course I do a lot of work with personality styles. Some people are going to be sitting here saying, Terry, this all sounds fantastic. I love your enthusiasm for this conversation. I'm wondering if I'm built for this. I'm wondering if I'm wired. What is your opinion on nature versus nurture when it comes to our ability to connect with other people and to have networking, professional networking, be an enjoyable, fruitful experience?
So I appreciate that I am probably wired a little different in that respect, right? That I am wholly built to be of service to help other people. But I want you to look at it from a couple of different perspectives. One, there's this idea of selfish altruism, right? For me, I'm out there networking because I know, just like what Michael said, the more I give, the more I get, right? So I am doing this as an altruistic thing, help, 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 help. But I'm doing it because I know ultimately it ends up being get, 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 get. So if you need to frame it a little differently, selfish altruism are two words that you don't normally hear together, but they go like peanut butter and jelly. Um, and then the other side is, you know, I firmly believe that we're all here in supposed to be in some aspect of love. And there's no higher purpose than service, right? And that's the greatest reflection of love that we can get. So if you're trying to be your most highest, most authentic self, try living in that space and see if you can come to any conclusion other than, well, shit, I got to help other people. And if you can, I'd love to have that conversation. Let's talk it out.
You this you're touching on so many things that I want to follow, but this thought about being of service first and foremost before you do have an ask, I can't help but think of Gary Vaynerchuk's book. I think it's like jab, 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 right hook.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's along those same lines. He may take a slightly different perspective on it in terms of business, but I think the underlying premise is still there, that you give, 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 and then, sort of go in for the ask. Second thing I want to do is I want to make sure before I forget that that I share our poll and just show people that 14% of the audience falls into the confident category. 71% are saying they're somewhat confident building their network, something I might expect. And then 14% say I could use some serious help. Anything surprise you in those numbers, Terry?
Looks like a bell curve to me, man.
Yep, just about. I want to take a sort of an unexpected left turn here. And I want to do this because of what I heard you talk about at the HR Unite conference over the summer. You brought such an interesting perspective, a holistic perspective to what it means to be your best self and do your best work. So yes, this is a conversation about professional networking and growing your network, but I would love for you to riff just for a moment on something you've already alluded to, which is we are so much more than who we are professionally, what we're trying to do with our network. I won't speak for you, but I would love for you to follow this thread for a little bit because I know it's something you're passionate about.
So the talk you saw and the talk that Tina Marie asked me to give was the 5 pillars to living your best life. And I was I recorded a podcast, my own podcast for Business Growth Time this morning with a lady named Michelle. Gardner Ince, who goes by GI. She was a colonel in the Air Force, 27 years of service. Now she's helping women, veterans, find jobs or create entrepreneurial opportunities with the Department of Veteran Affairs. And she was amazing. She was talking about passion, and she used the word balance. And then she's like, no, it's not balance, it's harmony. It needs to be harmony. And I talked about this in one of the posts that you shared. I got up and I actually showed my tattoo that supposedly says harmony. It's written in Chinese. I don't read Chinese. I don't necessarily recommend getting tattoos that you don't know what they say, but we all live and learn. So harmony for me is super important, and those 5 pillars need to operate harmoniously because they don't operate in balance. That's not how it works. And the pillars are your relationships, right? And that can be to your employees or to your family or to your colleagues or your friends. But most importantly, it starts with the relationship to you, right? We got to start there. The second pillar is your mental health. How are you taking care of the space between your ears? Because holy cow, is that important? What are you reading? What are you listening to? How are you keeping that PMA, that positive mental attitude? How do you now drown out the negative and all the noise? You know, the third one's your physical health. What are you doing to keep that temple strong? The fourth one is spiritual health, and you can define spiritual any way you want. But what is your connectedness to a larger purpose and to the community is how I define it. And that last one is financial health. Are you taking care of, are you taking care of your money? I was joking during that talk that my money's super lazy. It doesn't even go out and work for more money. So I need to get my money trained up a little bit. Go make some money, damn it, instead of me having to do all the work. But so that was kind of that holistic viewpoint that you were mentioning. And it's really, really important. You gotta spend a lot of time thinking about things, I suppose, to come up with that as a as a thesis. But I think introspection is one of my interests that are listed on my LinkedIn profile.
Yeah.
That and The Simpsons. I'm very diverse.
That's another conversation. So here's I like that what you're saying around all of these pillars, because being aware of how you are these pillars, you can't also but help but be aware of how other people are tending to these same pillars. So then you and I meet, Terry, and I'm thinking, I have these immediate needs and I can list them out, 3 or 5 that, I might want to talk about. But if I show up being interested in who you are from these different perspectives, I can't help but think that I'm going to get to know you on a much deeper level. We're going to have a much more meaningful conversation. We may not even get to those things that I thought we were going to discuss, but we will forge a bond that will pay off for one or both of us in ways that we haven't yet even considered. I'm assuming you agree with that.
I would agree with that indeed. And in fact, I've been listening to Epictetus lately, and Epictetus is a Stoic philosopher 2,000 years ago. And one of the things that his I don't know if it was a book, but one of his common thoughts was, when you meet somebody, don't talk about common tripe. Don't talk about what's going on at the Colosseum or what the gladiators are doing, right? Or what's going on in the air around you. So he's basically saying, skip the sports, skip the weather, skip the small talk, have meaningful discussion and discourse with people. And so, yeah, you're big 100%. You
I
bond
love
on that stuff.
It's amazing that you brought that up, because just I guess by pure coincidence, Stoic philosophy has become a theme in some of these lunch dates. People have either brought it in intentionally as part of our conversation, or just because it happened to apply in some way. I wouldn't have expected it to show up as often as it has.
When we go through trauma, and let's be clear, we've gone through a major collective trauma this year. What ends up happening is we try and go back to the basics, and candidly, I can't think of anything more basic than Stoics. Right? They're about as binary as it gets. This is either good or it's not. And notice how it's good or not good or bad, right?
Mm.
Because realistically, there's not love and hate. There's love and absence of love, right?
Mm.
There's good or there isn't good. It's not good or bad, it's good or absence of good, right?
Mm.
And so we always think about things in a very duality perspective, but oftentimes it's really singular or the lack of that singularity.
Holy cow, you got me thinking on that one. We could spend all of our time just kind of parsing through that. I would love to touch briefly on one of the challenges I know that I have faced in the past, and we get vulnerable in these lunch date conversations, and I am not exempt from that. I like to quantify things. And so when people say, Eric, this professional networking event would be well worth your time, I'm asking the question, if I'm going to spend 5 minutes on this or $5, how is it going to pay off? And I struggle with faith in that and perhaps other perspectives. And what would you say to people who are showing up saying, this all sounds so valuable to me, but I'd like to have things quantified, and it's tough for me to dedicate an amount of time or an amount of money when money is involved, although a lot of networking can be done for free, when I don't know what that payoff is going to be. If I'm not making my ask right off the bat because I'm focused on building this relationship, am I ever going to get that job? Am I ever going to get that introduction? Am I ever going to get that client?
Yeah, and that's a great question. And so in my book, I talk about the idea that if networking is just how do I grow my business, you're probably looking at it the wrong way. So it's because it's a slow burn sometimes. Relationship building can take time. I'm a super open networker. If you said, "Hey, I need to meet somebody that would be a good podcast guest, who do you know?" I would give you 30 people that I know. I'd probably introduce you to 15 of them right off the bat, and maybe I drip a few of them on you later. But it's not everybody's like that. Not everybody's that willing to give. So what you need to look at in networking is shrill noises. Oh wait, no, that's outside. What you need to look at is how do you leverage the knowledge that's inside the network? How do you find like a trusted board of advisors? How do you find information that you don't already have? How do you get access to events that you wouldn't be going to? How do you get to enact those laws of reciprocity by giving and serving other people? How do you get other things that are intangible that you weren't really thinking about? Because that happens all the time. Unintended consequences happen in networking events like it's going out of style, because the type of people that go to networking events are usually in the know. They're usually trying to do things that are serving other people. They're usually growth oriented, growth mindset. So you're going to get things that you weren't expecting. And oh, by the way, you could get connected to that next job, that next business partner, that next piece of business. It's got to be like, oh, and I want to get that too, as opposed
Yeah.
to if that's the sole focus.
And it sounds like networking isn't just attending an event online or in person or having a 30-minute conversation. I'm sort of gathering from a lot of what you're saying is that networking can be as simple as connecting to other people and stepping out of the way, seeing something show up on LinkedIn, a need there, and saying, my goal is to help this person solve this problem or this challenge in a way that we may not have defined as networking in the past, but I can't help but think that you come out of that on the other end more endeared to that person or vice versa than you would ever have been, potentially even engaging in a 30-minute conversation or having attended an hour and a half event with them online.
It's so accurate what you just said, because it's nonstop, right? One of the reasons that Motor City Connect exists is because LinkedIn was a thing, and people were still doing all the face-to-face networking and meeting every week or every other week, as if networking couldn't take place 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And so when I started looking at it from that perspective, I'm like, man, networking's got to be anywhere you are whenever you're there. And if you're doing it with the needs of others in mind, as opposed to just your needs, right? I'm not saying you can't think about your needs. I'm saying think about others too, and probably think about others first, but you can do both. But when you take that perspective, I don't care if you're at the line in the grocery store or at the restaurant or walking into a sales meeting. whatever the case may be, you can get your network on. And if you look at my most recent LinkedIn post where I actually talk about this event today, what we're talking about, um, you'll see me connecting people in the comments, right? Because the person I talked to, I was like, holy crap. It literally in my show, I'm like, oh, I got to introduce you to Elizabeth. And as I'm talking, I'm typing, hey, Elizabeth, you got to meet Michelle.
Yeah, right.
Because I'm squirrely like that.
Mike is adding, speaking of the comments in the chat area, Mike is suggesting that one of the things that LinkedIn is good for is those connections even before getting into referring people and having deeper conversations. How do you get to know them as a person, what they value, what they prioritize, so that you have greater faith in how that person can be of value to others? And it's more of an informed, I guess, introduction or referral. So Mike, thanks for putting that in there.
It's
Terry, I
amazing
mean,
for context.
we could go all afternoon and we only have a couple minutes left. Terry's been gracious enough to say he'll spend a few additional minutes for those of you who can stick around after 12:30 Central Time to answer some questions. We didn't even get into your work with TEDx Detroit. You talked about Motor City Connects. We're going to include links to all of these things in my follow-up email to attendees. It sounds like you're all over the place, not just because you're driving around today, but you have your hands in so many different things. Where can people find you following this conversation?
The single best place is LinkedIn. I'm there every day, and it's linkedin.com/n/Terry Bean, so I'm conveniently hidden there. TryBean.com, TryBean.com is my website. There's, I don't know, probably 150 blog posts that are about business growth and personal growth, and lots of networking, lots of social media. I do have a lot of articles on LinkedIn as well that are along that same vein. TEDx Detroit, I'm mentioning it because you brought it up, and I'm about to go into a meeting on that, is happening Wednesday, September 30th. It is virtual and it is free to attend. So anyone that's watching this that wants to join can, which is cool. I spent 7 years trying to track down the executive producer, showrunner, and one of the first writers of the TV show The Simpsons. And thank you, COVID, he's actually going to be presenting this year. And I'm super stoked about that. So yeah, that's happening. And I'd feel bad if I didn't mention it because it's free and available at this point.
Great. Well, we will keep that in the follow-up email as well. Terry, this has been a great conversation. If everybody was as inspired as I am and have been by this discussion, I hope you'll go back to harmonyinsights.com/lunch dates to sign up for a few more that we have coming up. On October 6th, we'll have Developing Your Mental Strength with Karen Allen, who is a TEDx speaker herself and has just a fantastic story to share. I highly recommend that you come to that. One that was scheduled for October 1st that is now rescheduled for October 13th is how HR leaders can lead change, especially with what's going on right now with Jay Pawlacki. October 15th will be the Power of HR Community with Courtney Templin, who's the president of JB Training Solutions and Chicago SHRM as well, local SHRM chapter here in Chicago. And then October 22nd, I'm going to talk with Katie Lopez about the HR anthropologist, how anthropology can help inform what we're doing around inclusion in the workplace. I can't wait for that discussion. As I mentioned, people can stick around. If you need to go about your afternoon, you're welcome to with our blessing. But if you want to stick around, we'll have a few additional minutes with Terry. But Terry, just let me reiterate, I'm just so glad that you'd be willing to spend this time with us on a day that I know you're jumping from one commitment to the next. I really appreciate that you hunker down in your car for a bit and chat with us about professional networking.
Truly a pleasure. It's a passion, it's an interest, and more importantly, my belief is the better we all get at networking, the better all of our networking will be.